Well, we still ain't got that singer working, Michael, but hello everybody and welcome to this week's live review of Loki episode 5. I don't know what's going on with that stinger. Might have to sit down and pay a little attention. But welcome to the show. I hope you've all had a great week since we last discussed.
If you don't mind me, I'm going to prop myself up with the microphone.
Because you're not feeling very well. It has got a little cooler here. Not that much
Not really. It's like 34 degrees today.
It actually went down to like 22 degrees for 3 days, and now, just as the moment we come and sit back in the hot studio, it is now fucking hot again. But anyway, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Leave us a comment. Join us in the chat. Let us know what you thought of Loki episode 5. We're going to do the same.
First thing when you walk in here that we don't want you to forget is to do any of that. Make sure you do it all, and then some.
Even more some, yeah. Michael, episode 5.
Awesome.
Yeah. Did you enjoy it? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you come up with stupid theories?
Are those the only options I have?
Yes, I'm a Sith. I deal in absolutes. What did you think?
It was cool. It was really fun to just continue going down this rabbit hole of not having a fucking clue what the hell's going on. It makes when the writing is internally consistent and clever and compelling and cerebral, it makes all that worth it because it's earned. There's no complaint when something happens in a way that is unexpected, right? I think if we go back to sort of like the problems a lot of people had with Star Wars films, the most recent iterations, the whole meme of, oh, it subverted my expectations. This might be what they're talking about when they say there's a right way to do that. And so far, the show in general has done that. Because nothing happened the way that we expected it to happen. Nothing happened the way we said it was going to happen, which is why increasingly at the end of each one of these live reviews, I don't bother because I can't even.
But you got it for the last one.
None of the speculation even comes close. There's just minor details that we kind of get right. Like, this one's grasping at straws, but at least we didn't really discover what was going on with the TVA at all. We had a brief insight into that early on, but then most of this episode was all set in the void. The wasteland.
We kind of got that right-ish.
Kind of. Again, but like I say, kind of.
We said that everything gets proven, gets sent to the same place.
Yeah, but now where I'm going with this is in regards to whether or not I like this episode. That is something that, when it's earned, actually is something that is fun to watch. And this episode, seemed like, felt like, looked like, acted like filler. And I said that about an earlier episode 3, Lamentis. And I don't think either of them really are filler. They're just good action stories with some great character interactions and some fun moments and some sad moments. And this one, again, like Lamentis, I feel like had a 3-act structure to it, making it feel like an episode that will go back and enjoy again, even without understanding where it fits in the grand scheme of things with this Loki overarching story. It still has a beginning and an end. It starts out with Loki falling into this place where he doesn't know where he is, having to unravel the plot, try to figure out what's happened, give himself a goal, and then achieve that goal by the end of the episode. It's great. It's just maybe we've been, I don't know, spoiled or not spoiled. Sorry, the opposite of that. Starved for actually good standalone stories in TV, because for the most part things these days are serialized, and it's still serialized, don't get me wrong, obviously it's all part of a 6-episode arc, but I just feel like this was something that I can digest over and over again.
Yeah, I can understand that. I agree with you with this having the same feel as episode 3, Lamentis. And I think calling it filler, I was just thinking there as you was talking, it is probably unjust. it's not fair on the script writing. What episode 3 and 5 were to me were in a traditional movie scene. It's that 5 to 10 minutes of lull from the actual swing of the ups and downs of the story, where in a 2-hour movie they throw in a little bit of character interaction to make you feel like these characters are connected. The reason why they feel like filler is because we now actually have 45 minutes to take that 10 minutes and put it over 45. Like in episode 3, it was Loki and Sylvie meeting each other and getting to know each other. Episode 5 was taking that a step further. It was still when Sylvie showed up and meets Loki, we have that very nice scene where they sit down and talk to each other. It's still developing their relationship. It's bringing Mobius back into the fold and seeing that Loki does actually respect Mobius. And then on the side of that, we have the variant Lokis to add a little bit of... can you turn that alert off, please? We have the other variant Lokis to add a little bit of probably comedy. Like the fight scene was perfect. Like, it was comical. So that's what I think what's going on those 2 episodes. It wasn't necessarily to really progress the plot, but we still, like you said, like...
Well, I think the reason they're confused as filler episodes is because they don't really fit 100% like a jigsaw puzzle piece into the overarching plot of the show. They're missing... They both end with cliffhangers, and they're missing real vital pieces of information. They're contained stories but they're so nicely like incorporated that they're contained stories where if you take them out, right, we're not missing that much. If you take Lamentus out, for instance, all you're really missing is the revelation about the TVA and the development of the character of Sylvie, right? You take that out, you don't necessarily need to develop the character of Sylvie if you want the overarching story of the series to make sense, and you can very easily just hand wave away the whole TVA variance thing too. With episode 5, it's the same thing. You don't really need to have like anything to do with this void space. To be honest, they could have just gone straight from episode 4 straight to what we're going to get in episode 6. So they feel like filler episodes because that's what most people say filler is just kind of a waste of time to get us from point A to point B. But these episodes themselves, and specifically this one, because it has a very big action set piece in it, is more of just entertainment for the sake of entertainment. I've got it, Matthew. I've flicked the switch and I've turned it down. I don't know. Honestly, it's just this guy. He's freaking out about his girlfriend, and I can't do anything about it. So just live with it. I've lost my train of thought.
Okay,
you're pulling that face.
I'll pick up the train.
What you could do is what most of us do in show business is ignore adversity. That's how we get through it.
So I agree with you that they're not filler. That's why I say I think filler's the wrong use to wrong word to use.
But they kind of are filler. But they're good filler.
Yeah. I think what happens though is people associate the word filler with bad. And it doesn't need to be.
There's negative connotations thrown towards everything these days.
But we definitely do get...
Because I would say Lamentis was a bad episode based on that, because it ends in a cliffhanger and we don't really get anywhere. But if you think about it, like the things I just said, that I said throw them away and it won't change the narrative of the series much. You actually do end up getting a lot. You get the character development of Sylvie, which now that we've had that character development, you wouldn't know what you'd do without it. That's why this is such a great show and so well written, because at the end of the day, what were we saying were our theories about who the Loki variant was or who Sylvie was. I was saying, she's going to be Wanda. You're saying she's going to be Free. We're making all these crazy, wild theories about her.
And they're all wrong.
No, but it's not even a matter of whether they're wrong. It's a matter of how it didn't it didn't matter, because the show developed and showed us this new character. Spent time building a relationship between our Loki and this lady Loki to the point where we just sat back and just let the show do its thing, and and that's filler in a sense.
Yeah. And I haven't found any outrage on the internet about this, like there was in WandaVision when it turned out that Quicksilver was Ralph Boner and nobody, and like the people lost some of the stuff that happened in WandaVision.
That was kind of lazy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Really.
There was stuff in WandaVision that people lost their shit over. Now, admittedly, I think WandaVision left you a lot more because it made no sense. It left you more to theorize,
but it was also lazy.
Yeah.
So because it was so lazy, you had no choice but to theorize because your brain's trying desperately to fill in the gaps to sort of make the things that don't quite jive with your understanding of stories make sense. Whereas at least Loki so far, it's just been like, hey, you know what? Every single thing that's happened that has completely subverted my expectations, I'm okay with it. You know why? Because it's interesting, because it's fun, because it's interesting, it's cool.
Well,
they even say that in this episode when he's talking about alligator Loki, and he's just like, just don't worry about it.
Just don't think too hard about it. Let's move on to some of the parts that we really liked.
You tell us what you think of it.
I thought it was great. Every single episode has been way above 7 for me, everyone. I think the production quality of this one stands out way above the first two. I think every single time I watch this show, it looks and feels like I'm watching a movie.
It's not as ambitious, so everything doesn't need to be like a ridiculous, over-the-top extravaganza in special effects and visual design. It's mostly just very stylistic. It's got a cool like look to it. That the look itself is more than visually appealing to us, so we don't need the distractions of ridiculous action set pieces. Heck, even the quote villain in this episode is just a particle effect
with some glowing eyes. Which is very Wizard of Oz. Like it's a smokescreen. It is a literal smokescreen. Because it's hiding something.
It serves that purpose, but it is a actual being.
Yeah, but it's hiding something to the point at the end when it parts, it's green, and it parts and reveals the man behind something behind the curtain.
What is it called? A lion?
Aliath.
Aliath.
So we ended on that.
Hey, it's Aliath.
It's a lie.
Yeah.
That was terrible, but
no, I think that's probably intentional.
Maybe. What I did like about this episode was...
One of the major themes of this episode is deception.
Yeah. And we got even more of Loki's journey from Attack on New York Loki to becoming Loki the hero. And I think that was very... I think this show's handled that really well because obviously we had all the movies of the MCU from Attack on New York to him being in Thor Ragnarok and at the end of Ragnarok, beginning of Infinity War.
I love that he made that mention where he's like, I don't even know how long it's been since New York.
Again, that was a great line because it shows us that if our main character doesn't know, then we're not supposed to know how long it's been.
Well, because the TVA exists outside of time.
Time travels differently, yeah. But like you said, when he puts out that there's an alligator there, and I don't even find that weird. Again, when we saw it at the end of last week, we were kind of thinking they're kind of not following what the multiverse. But then again, that's probably us overthinking of how multiverses work. If Marvel's not into it, the fact that the moment a crocodile Loki, like you said to me, basically says there is an Asgard out there where all Asgardians are crocodiles.
I wouldn't say it's
or alligators.
It's not overthinking. I just watch a lot of lectures on physics and stuff. So I've always wanted to be a physicist. I just never had the grades. So it's not really overthinking necessarily because like I think it's a valid criticism, to be honest, if that ends up being something that becomes more in the forefront of how the multiverse in the MCU works. Because
if they're trying to use scientific multiverse.
No, it's not about that. This is about just storytelling. Fuck science. I'm just saying their rules have already been broken. Because what would cause more of a variance or a Nexus event than the entire Asgardian people being alligators? But then on top of that, not to mention that Loki's an adopted frost giant, so the frost giants alligators, they're frost alligators. So that's what I mean. Like, so I did appreciate the hand wave of
just fucking
don't worry about it. Because and I was saying this last week. It's mostly just kind of a gag.
Yeah.
Right. So you can forgive it for that.
Well, I really enjoyed the part
it's madness.
The part of this episode that basically give us a look into was Loki in 3 stages: what he was, what he is now, and what he could become as variants. And you pointed out, young Loki is what Loki was like as a kid. Then we have our Loki,
except he killed Thor,
which caused
which is maybe perhaps something that Loki wanted to do at some point in his life, but he was never able to achieve it. He never did it because that's not what the TVA wanted.
We have our main character Loki, our protagonist, and then we have old Loki, who I thought in this episode was great. I thought Richard E. Grant was phenomenal in this episode. The way he delivered his dialogue, the way, spoilers, he goes out like a boss at the end.
But he also really conveys the whole like, trust me, young people like just like completely shrugging off old people, wisdom and whatnot and all that. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, you won't know until you're my age. Oh, you won't know until you've lived it. You won't know until you've gone through it. It's like fucking parents, and you won't know what it's like to be a parent until you've had a kid.
Yeah,
it's basically what Richard E. Grant Loki was. He's like trying to be this. Well, I've been there. I've done that. I've lived the life. I know what all of our follies are. I know what our follies are, and that's why I was able to survive as long as I did. Because it turns out that he was only caught by the TVA once he actually started interacting with the universe again.
And I love those lines of why he brought himself out of solitude, because he was lonely, and he missed his brother, and he wondered if his brother missed him, and the moment he made steps to basically reintegrate himself into the sacred timeline is when the TVA stepped in. So I thought all their interactions were good. We then got the silly bit of the Loki fight scene, just showing us a bunch of Lokis who have not had any character development or learned anything.
And you know what's so really funny about that sequence? And it had me thinking this throughout the rest of the show, actually, when I started having this line of thought. It made me think of the fight in Rick and Morty between all the Meeseeks when they're all freaking out because they can't get Jerry to take a swing or a stroke off of his long game, and they all just start like ripping each other's arms off and fucking fighting. It really reminded me of that. But even before that, it was just kind of great because it really does illustrate that these Lokis, and you see it in our Loki's face when he's just watching, like, what are you guys playing at? It's like these Lokis have not only just probably gone nuts and gone crazy from being stuck in this void for so long, but they're also just still typical backstabbery trickster Lokis, all wanting to vie for power because every single one of them is backstabbing the other.
But there you go, a nice, crazy, literally over-the-top set piece where just by a few looks from Tom Hiddleston, we see tons of character development in our Loki. Mm-hmm. And then obviously they get
That's what makes me wonder, like, why did Mobius need that particular Loki? Are we saying that the Loki that gets defeated in New York is the one that's finally willing to sit and look at himself in the mirror?
Well, yeah, because we're supposed to think that Loki becomes the Loki that Thanos snaps his neck.
So that's a really interesting thing that I hadn't considered, and it's not really got much to do with this episode, but it's just a thought I had because it's starting to make me wonder. The more we see these Lokis, it's like, what is it specific about this Loki that makes him our Loki, other than the fact that he's the titular character of the show? I think the show's trying to tell me, anyway, from what my understanding would be, that this is the Loki that is at that point in his life. He's just been defeated by the Avengers. He's just suffered humiliation at the hands of the Hulk. He's just literally hit rock bottom, and so now that he's rock bottom, there's nowhere he can go except up, and that's what he's done throughout 5 episodes of this TV series so far. He's gone from that to personal incredulity to his situation, to having his ego torn down, to more humiliation, to discovering truths about the universe, truths about himself, to finding someone who he actually finally cares about. He's gone through quite the journey as Loki in this show.
Well, and also none of it's all felt earned as well. Like, there's sometimes when we see characters go through...
The only thing not earned so far in this series is really the buddy hug relationship between him and Mobius.
It started, it just didn't have enough time to percolate.
It works for me in the end because I like the chemistry between Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson, but I just kind of feel like at some point they were like, "Yeah, we're totally friends now." It's like Step Brothers. Did we just become best friends?
Well, they missed that opportunity when they were studying, going through all the case files and stuff. They could have done like a little time lapse where Loki goes and gets him coffee, and then Mobius gets him breakfast, and it showed that spanned over days.
Yeah, I did want a little bit more of an illustration as to why they become friends.
Mm-hmm. So obviously, then Loki decided. Do you know what I did like as well? Is after Loki's done all those bad metaphors, old Loki comes up with the perfect metaphor. And he goes, there are no alligator tanks. It's a perfect metaphor. But it shows that through age, that Loki learns how to do metaphors. But obviously Loki then decides, after he said it's an animal, that you can kill it. And we see that our Loki is definitely 100% certain about getting to the TVA and basic. Now, I get the feeling as well that he wants to get back to the TVA for Sylvie. He's not on the crusade yet to take down the TVA. He's doing it because he wants to help.
He's doing it because he's found his glorious purpose,
which is her.
Not just her, but just being a person, being a. I know they're Asgardians, but for lack of a better term, being a human being.
Yeah, and being the hero.
Yeah, I think he finds his hero steps separately, but like I think the idea is that Loki is just he's found his humanity is what I'm thinking. He's
learning not to be selfish.
That's part of it, sure. Yeah, there's more nuance to it than just that, but we'd probably have to sit here all day listing off the amount of character growth that the show's tried to put him through. And in only 5 episodes, fucking thumbs up.
They've done a great job.
Kate Herron.
I like the fact as well that they didn't, because we were talking about this last week, that we probably won't get a lot of Sylvie. We theorized that we might get like the last 5 minutes, but I like the fact that shit, she had a little to and fro with Renslayer, realized that Renslayer was going to betray her and pruned herself to go find Loki. I like that happened nice and early. And we got the two of them back together.
Yeah, but the Renslayer is probably the weakest part of the show so far. And it's a shame because it seems like she's the only real villain we have. But the reason I find her to be a little bit weak is because of just how like telegraphed her bullshit is. Like it's even from the first time she sat down talking with Mobius, I'm like, this is so blatantly obvious that this person's not telling us something.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe I'm just a little too picky there, but it feels...
Let me ask you, do you think that what we got in this episode of her actually wanting to... Was she shocked at the TVA androids and that she wants to find out who they are? Do you actually believe that that's true?
Well, remember the end of our discussion last week, we'd made the assumption that she did know. But now, after this episode, I think what's actually going on in Renslayer's mind is now she's discovered the truth with us at the same time. She did not expect... Because I thought it was kind of weird that we had the pre-credits sequence for episode 4. She goes in to speak to the timekeepers, and she's all like... You know,
and it's red eyes
like
and
she's
scary.
all she's all like nervous and whatnot. So she must think that those timekeepers are real. So she's probably finding out just along with us and Loki and Sylvie that they're not real. However, what she does have that our heroes don't have is a position of power that she's probably earned, worked towards. She's also discovered the certain truths of the time because she obviously knew that that she was a variant and that all the other TVA members are variants. She obviously knew that the pruning sends people to the void at the end of time. There's details she knows, so she basically stinks in my mind of a key to power in a dictatorship regime. So what she's doing is, and this is just my thought and what I get from this, is that she does want to find out who the timekeepers really are and who's behind it all, but she also doesn't want to lose what she's earned, which is why she's still fighting on the side of that. She wants to find out just as much as Loki and Sylvie who's behind it all. But when she does find out who's behind it all, she's gonna be like, "Look, I did your bidding, and like I remained faithful, and I remained loyal."
Well, she obviously still believes what the TVA are doing is just.
I don't think so. I think it's all narcissism. It's all about
Really?
I want to keep my position of power. I found out that the world isn't what it seems, except I know that I've been given this duty in life, and so I want to keep it. I want to keep the nice office. I want to keep.
Well, that could be quite scary for her, because if that's how she identifies herself, by that power, by that position, to have that taken away is like having your personality stripped out. You've lost everything. Even if everything she has is wrong, she will feel like that is a personal attack on her. So you're right. I believe that has been the weakest aspect of the storyline. We did get a few bits from the interactions with her that did make me raise eyebrows. The first
she speaks with C-15 as well.
Well, the first one was when Sylvie prunes herself, and the guard was like really shocked, like to the point of, what the fuck did she do that for? So to me, is that going to put seeds of doubt in the Minutemen now?
Possibly.
Then we had the interesting exchange between her, Sylvie, and Miss Minute, where Miss Minute actually acts like a sentient being and suggests a tactic to delay time for the Minutemen.
Well, she says earlier though in the series, when Loki asks, "Wait, are you real?" She's like, sort of both.
Because I thought when I first watched the episode, because we watched it twice now, I missed that. I thought it was Renslayer that was suggesting the stalling tactic, but it wasn't. It's the AI, which I watched you watch a video about someone saying nefarious things about Miss Minute is the big bad.
I'd already suggested way back when we were in our episode 2 review, I think there's a very outlandish idea and possibility that Miss Minute is one of the timekeepers.
Miss Minute is Ultron. Is that what you're saying?
No.
I don't think she is. I think she might
know who she is, though.
You what?
Do you know who she probably really is?
Who? Mephisto.
Yeah.
Miss Mephisto Minute.
Yeah.
So there was that.
Well, I mean, Miss Minutes, Mephisto.
Yeah. I tell you what, that's as close of a link to some of the links that people linked in WandaVision to Mephisto being in it. Even to the point where the new end credit scene shows end credit scene shows invisible Mephisto coming down to the cabin. That's so dumb. And then the part where she asks for all information on the creation of the TVA. It seemed to me like that Miss Minute was kind of like trying to...
She was stalling.
Stalling, yeah, that she didn't want to give Renslayer the info. And she's like, yeah.
Well, maybe.
I'll be right back.
This is where it could, if that turns out to be true, again, I believe this now because I think the writing of the show is really competent. I don't think it's necessarily going to be the case, but it could be because it's actually shown to us as it's just stalling to wait for the backup to arrive to stop Sylvie.
No, I mean, after Sylvie's pruned herself, the next interaction when she asks...
Well, yeah, so that's why it's good writing, because the first time you see her stalling, the Miss Minute stalling, you're just like, oh, well, it's because she's stalling for the Minutemen to show up. Mm-hmm. However, later, after Sylvie's already pruned herself and gone and whatnot, and now Miss Minutes is still continuing to stall, which makes you think, oh, well, maybe it is really hard to find. Who knows?
Yeah. So I liked the Void stuff better. And I liked the explanation of the Void, actually. That was quite an interesting place to say that the Void was at the end of time, that the Timekeepers haven't created that yet. So that, therefore, the Timekeepers must be beyond the Void because you can't find them
it's not a parallel universe, as we thought.
Yeah.
So, because my understanding is, and this is why it's actually kind of dark in a way and very Lovecraftian, is that the sacred timeline does have an endpoint, right? But that endpoint is still on the linear timeline, meaning that because the Void is behind the Tempest monster, the Eliam or the Eliath or whatever, meaning that in order to keep the present as we know it safe and sacred, they're constantly prolonging the Ragnarok, for lack of a better term, the end of the universe, the end of time, and that's why it's now confirmed basically when they prune people and destroy realities, they're killing people because they're sending all of these realities to a time in the sacred timeline at the very end of time to be destroyed by Eliath, by the Eliath.
Well, I didn't see it like that. I saw that the timeline is moving to the end. Then there's, for want of a better word, a tiny little gap, and then there's the void. That's where Eliath lives. And basically, when you get pruned out of time into the void and eaten by Eliath. And then beyond the void is where the timekeepers are.
Well, whoever.
Because
whatever the
I pointed out
is.
to you, because if the void is the end of the timeline, the moment you prune someone new into that, the timeline keeps trucking.
So the only way they could do it using their own logic would be that the void is not a void. It's what we said. It's another.
It's a pocket outside the sacred timeline.
No, it's just another. It's one of the infinite timelines in the multiverse that is just being used as a garbage dump for all this shit. I don't think that's what's going on. I think what's going on is they're sweeping shit under the rug. They're not dumping into the landfill of another timeline. They're sweeping all this under the rug. So they're like pushing it all to the end of time, and then that's why it needs to get destroyed by Eliath. Because there's no other explanation for why we have this Eliath thing. Because at first I thought that Eliath was more smoke and mirrors, but it's actually a real thing that devours shit that's left in the void.
I think how Sylvie describes Eliath is what it is. It's a guard dog.
Yeah. But I think this is what the best way to explain it, right? So, let's say you have bunches of pieces of let's say infinite amounts of rope, but for the sake of this thought experiment, you got a bunch of rope. On one end, you've got like a ring around the rope, and you got another ring, right? And you pull the one ring. What does it do? It pulls all of these ropes together into the one timeline, right?
Yeah.
Trying to illustrate this. This ring on this end is where the void is. And it just keeps going. Every time something gets dumped there and devoured by Eliath, that ring keeps moving forward. And keeps moving forward, and we'll just keep moving forward and forward and forward until the timekeepers have written the end of time. That writing the end of time to me is bullshit. It's not going to happen.
It might be, but my idea, my thought on that one though is, if you say the void is constantly moving, then that means 2 minutes ago from when Loki showed up is on the sacred timeline. Mm-hmm. So at some point in the future, if the void is our inevitable future, at some point it's got to start going to shit, and everything that they've pruned in the past starts showing up.
Entropy, baby.
Whereas I think
that's probably the main reason why the whole concept and the whole dream of the sacred timeline is not even a possibility, because reality just can't do that. Life finds a way.
Well, what I got from it was the void is like a pocket space at the end of time, actually not on the sacred timeline. It's just beyond the end of the sacred timeline, and
time doesn't work that way.
We don't know that it works.
Bruce tells us that. So for all of those variants and for all the things that go to that void, that now becomes
their present. But that's what I'm saying though. The present might exist,
which then becomes their past.
Yeah, but the present the void might exist out of time because the TVA exists out of time.
The only way I could see it being like that is as if that the void itself is in the quantum realm as well.
Yeah. So like if you take the TVA,
which means that the TVA, Renslayer, and everyone are lying to us about the nature of everything.
Well, I think they are all lying to us because we mentioned right at the start of this.
I think they're lying to us, but I don't think they're lying to us about everything.
Yeah, because we mentioned at the beginning of this that we think the TVA is in the quantum realm in like a tesseract where time acts differently. So it's a different part of space. I believe the void is the same, and when you prune something off the sacred timeline,
no, it's not a different part of space. It's just it's the down in like inside.
Yeah.
Subatomic.
Because that's what I think the void is. I think the void is another area like where the TVA is, where time runs differently. But it's where when they prune everything off that, like you said, prune's a good word because the sacred timeline is like a bush, and all these variants and the tangents that they don't want on the sacred timeline, so they prune them and they all fall into the garbage bin. And then beyond that is another pocket of space where the timekeepers are, and that's what we get to at the end. We have the guard dogs defeated in a very good actual action sequence, which shows us old Loki's.
I mean, you absolutely have no fucking clue.
No, we're just spitballing here, man.
This is where the filler negative connotation comes in for me with this episode. Once the way they defeat this Goliath character is so obviously our Loki and Sylvie get old Loki and young Loki all riled up to help them out and whatnot. Mobius shows up. It turns out he's fine. He's the one who finds and rescues Sylvie. They decide that the way that they're going to defeat this thing is by her enchanting it, because she enchants it. As she first arrives in the void and discovers that there's something about it that she wants to know more
she has
about.
Like a vision.
So it's like if we can enchant this thing, then we can find out what's beyond the void. And the end of this episode is pretty much just like,
hey, Kushal, how's it going, man? Go watch it. It's excellent.
That's why I say this episode's a standalone episode, and why it don't bother me that this is what happened. Is I was bothered in real time because I wanted. It was like, what the fuck is that? What's beyond the void?
I was like,
what's
don't
that
end.
What's
Don't
that
end.
castle? Yeah, I want to
see
see what's going on. But at the end of the day, the episode ends having the heroes of the episode complete their task. Their task to stop Elias, and I don't know. It's good. It's great for that reason alone. I begrudgingly want to like hold on to things and say that because cliffhanger bad. It's kind of there's a part of me that's hesitant to just get over that.
I never mind cliffhangers if I know I'm getting a resolution next week. I used to hate like the TNG mid-season cliffhanger, and you have to wait 5 months before.
Those were fucking great.
I hated those.
No, those were so great. Absolutely fantastic, and especially in execution too, because you had no idea whether or not Patrick Stewart was coming back for season 4.
The execution was good. It just doesn't mean whether I have to like it or not.
So you see, in modern day television, I find the execution is generally really poor. Like there needed to be when it cut to black, I'm like, like I stayed up basically to find out who the timekeepers are and what's going on. Whereas, but the thing is, this is where we're spoiled, because in the end, I actually, now that I think about it and having watched it again, I actually didn't. I got treated to 45 minutes of a very good little action adventure, where Loki and our heroes had to get through their disagreements and get to be on the same page with each other, go through some mini strifes together, and then finally stop the bad guy. That happened in that episode. We didn't learn anything new about the timekeepers, but that still was a story arc from start to finish.
Roms pointed out a lot of Easter eggs in this episode, and he's right.
Oh, it's full of them.
So these are the ones he pointed out: the living tribunal statue, the Hydra helicarrier, Thanoscopter. I don't know what Thanoscopter is. To me, it was just a helicopter with Thanos on it.
Well, it's something from the comics, obviously.
So someone pointed out as well, and he's put it here, Throg. So when you see Mjolnir, that is Frog 4 in the jar. I didn't even know Thor was a frog. I saw the Ronin ship, the good throwback to the Philadelphia Experiment, which is a great movie. Go watch it. And Avengers Tower. But Avengers Tower had OENG on it, which I believe is a reference to Kang the Conqueror. I've got to look more into that.
Wait, so that ship was the one from Philadelphia Experiment?
Yeah.
So again, it's a fun joke and a fun nod, but that's breaking their logic, because the people knowing about the Philadelphia Experiment would also act as variants in that case. If what was the ship, the USS Eldridge or something?
Yeah.
If that actually was a variant and everybody on board it was a variant, then anyone who remembered about it needs to be a variant. Are they basically saying that whenever people have conspiracy theories or see UFOs or whatever,
create a variant?
Those people are actually they're just remembering variants?
That's it. Maybe. When you have a conspiracy, you are remembering a variant timeline. Maybe
you're telling me this is the flat Earth timeline?
Yeah, man. There was another one that I pointed out to Michael, was when they walk into the underground bunker for the Lokis, there's a gigantic Yellow Jacket head on the left, which I said to him, I goes, was that a timeline where Yellow Jacket beats Ant-Man and obviously just gets stuck big and he gets pruned? Mm-hmm. So yeah, this episode was Easter egg-tastic. So I'm sure there's probably people on the internet who've already done this, who've got way more time and patience than me and you have, and gone through that episode frame by frame.
But this is why I say it's great that the writing for the show is so good, because these Easter eggs can be just that. Like the alligator Loki, for instance, they're just gaffes. They're just little gags.
Yeah, nods and winks, which I don't mind.
They're not meant to get you to really seriously contemplate the inner mechanics and the inner workings and the inner logics of the show. They're just there as just like
nice throwaway,
fun little side.
Well,
gags.
that's what I've liked about this.
And you can forgive that sort of stuff when the writing's this good.
Yeah, and this is what I like. Way more than WandaVision. WandaVision stirred up the fan base into a frenzy with Easter eggs and theories. And I think it got out of hand to the point where it actually sometimes made me not enjoy the show. Whereas this one, I haven't seen as many people frothing at the mouth to come up with crazy theories because the writing is so good.
No,
they haven't
people
left.
People are frothing at the mouth, but they've got nothing to dig their teeth into. That's the thing.
Of A, it has Kang, QENG Enterprise on it, a company that was created by Nathaniel Richards is Kang the Conqueror. Also, Alioth, the Purple Cloud Beast, is a trans-dimensional being. It left us in suspense. He left us on Rom's left us on a cliffhanger.
I do that all the time when I'm on live streams on YouTube where I'm typing a bunch of stuff and I accidentally hit send mid-sentence.
Come back! He left us on another cliffhanger. Yeah, so we hadn't even talked about Sylvia. I thought she was really good in this when she got to the void.
She was kind of minimalistic in this episode.
But the scene with her and Loki is my favourite scene of the entire show, where they sit down there, and that's where I think our Loki is now finished.
A little bit sappy.
It was sappy, but I believe our Loki has now finished his transition.
It was more
to
fun
becoming hero Loki.
I think that she was kind of just sort of like a plaything for the male Lokis in this episode, if you know what I'm saying. Like she was more of a item for them to basically look and contemplate and have some introspection about themselves. Especially considering you have that line that you pointed out that I hadn't even thought about. That when he says, "Have you guys ever come across a lady Loki?" and they're like, "What? No,
that'd be terrible."
Richard E.
Terrifying.
Old Loki, old Loki is like, that sounds terrifying. And to me, like Sylvie, it doesn't have any real personal growth of her own in this episode. She's already had it, and I think she's probably going to get more in episode 6. And that's kind of what I was talking about when I say this episode won't be really about her. It was kind of strange that she did prune herself, to be honest, to come here this early, but we ended up getting the like I said, the 3-act story of this episode because she was in it, but she doesn't really have any character growth in this episode.
I like what B15 said about her, though.
Is it B15? I keep thinking
B15. It was C20.
Yeah.
The fact that she says to Renslayer, "You want to find out who the timekeepers are."
Mm-hmm.
She needs it, and that's her driving force. This is just as Renslayer's. Yeah, just as Renslayer identifies herself as Judge Renslayer of the TVA, and that's who she is, and that's how I believe she's holding on to why she's acting like this. Sylvie is defined by her revenge for what the timekeepers have done to her.
Well, and if you think about it, going back to what we were saying about our Loki being the post-New York 2012 Loki, that's the perfect Loki to finally make the realization and look at himself in the mirror and make changes and actually allow himself to tear down his ego. Sylvie, on the other hand, has been a on-the-run time fugitive ever since she was a kid. So, like, there's a very broken person there in Sylvie.
Yeah.
Which is why I, wonder whether or not she makes it out of this series alive.
But her being broken now, this is why I liked that scene where there's the two of them. Because I got from that scene that she now finally realizes she has someone. Because she says to him, she says at the end of all this,
"What are you going to do?
Are you going to betray me?" And then that's when we get the development of Loki to hero Loki, where he says, "I've stabbed everybody I've ever loved in my back. My brother, my father." And basically, he's telling us, and excellent acting from the both of them. You said it was a bit sappy, but I liked it because it looked sincere on Tom Hiddleston's face.
It's sometimes a little sap's all right.
Yeah.
It's a bit sappy.
And at no point do I ever think now this is where the writing will be bad, and I won't like it. There's nowhere being written in the narrative through these 5 episodes and the development of those two that one of them's going to betray the other one. And if that happens, I won't like it. I like the fact that these two now have found each other and realized that they are not alone, because like you said, a lot of this theme of this thing is the world and the TVA and the people that Loki bumps into keep telling him, you're meant to be alone. That is your lot in life. You are to be alone. You are to fail. You are an outcast. They even say
I would say
the god of outcasts.
I would say that it would be kind of like
crap.
Completely take 2 steps backwards. Very, very ridiculous of them to have this character growth. And for all intents and purposes, create a new character in the Loki variant, because he's not the Loki necessarily that we have at the end. At the beginning of Infinity War. He is spiritually very similar, but he's this new character now who's had his ego broken down, and he's gone through these trials, and he's become a completely different person. And so for that to be like, sorry, it's just in my nature.
Yeah, I
like the Scorpion.
Yeah. I really
I don't know. Putting it that way, if it's executed in that way to show, maybe what if it was her who stabs him in the back, and it's basically that. It's the Scorpion. Is it the Scorpion and the Fox? Is that it?
Yeah, the Scorpion sits on the Fox's nose
to cross the river,
and
then the Scorpion
Fox is like, you're not going to sting me, are you? Yeah.
And Loki's like, wait, but now we're both going to die, and she's like, I'm sorry, I'm a Loki.
Okay, so Roms has finished he's the king of cliffhangers, man. He loves it. So Alioth is a purple cloud beast in a transdimensional being with something. On bet is a King Loki, because so his second bet is King Loki. In the trailer we've seen King Loki, but we haven't seen him in the show, and that's my second bet. And my third bet is who remains a past TVA agent who created the Timekeepers and gave them knowledge of the past. Oh, he thinks it's like the self-fulfilling prophecy, that someone like Renslayer goes back in time to create the Timekeepers.
I said that last week. I said it's actually, if that's the case, I thought it would be Loki, it's a Loki. Maybe it's the Loki, our Loki. He goes and realizes he's like Liara from the lair of the Shadow Broker. He's going to come across this Loki, find out that there's a Loki behind it all, and they'll both take him down. And then they'll be like, someone has to step in and take over the mantle. And
I hope not.
I don't know. It could be done well. It could be done pretty cool. I don't know at this point. I feel like
it's all good, Roms.
I think individually episodes so far have been great, but I fear. I have this trepidation in my soul that this finale has the potential to be really, really devastating to a lot of people watching the show.
So, okay, if it's devastating,
it needs whatever it is. It needs to be something that was definitely like something that the show was telling us, something that the story was like hinting at. This is why I don't want Kang, because like if it shows, it's Kang. Anybody who's never watched or read a comic, who's never read a Marvel comic, will be like, who's that? Why?
So you want the Timekeepers to be somebody we know? I
want it to be something that's that when you go back and analyze the show from start to finish, you're like, oh wow, that really was. It was under our nose all this time.
So if it's revealed,
that's why Miss Minutes.
That's why I say. So you'd be happier if it was Miss Minute pulling the strings, rather than setting up a next big bad for the MCU.
I don't think we want the big bad here. No, not unless it's Wanda. And I have a theory about that. We'll talk about that before we finish.
So anyway, carry on. I'll just get to my thought at the end of this. So, like you say, they come up with a plan to enchant Alioth. It looks like it's going south, and then old Loki shows up and uses sorcery that he'd mentioned earlier on. That daggers are all flashy and cool, but sorcerers is where Loki's are good.
Yeah, another character moment where she's like, what's he doing? And Loki's like, well, I think we're more powerful than we might realise.
And that's the name of the thumbnail. That to me, again, is another great character development for the two main protagonist Lokis. That old Loki's actually showing them we have a lot more power in us. And if we work together, because at that point is when she grabs him by the hand, and Loki learns how to enchant through osmosis, by touch, and it's a great scene, and Richard E. Grant's old Loki goes out awesomely in his hero moment he has. So in this episode...
It's good because you also really feel like you don't want him to die. You've already gone through the roller coaster of two main characters getting pruned the previous episode thinking they're dead. And now you're like, well, shit, this show could fucking kill anyone at any moment. And so as Richard E. Grant's doing his distraction, I'm like literally on the edge of my seat thinking, come on, pull through. But then he dies.
But there you go. Now, this is a sign of good writing.
Mm-hmm.
So
I said that.
In one episode, you've said that about Richard E. Grant. We also have Mobius, who hasn't had a great amount of screen time, but we actually care about him. You compare that to Carly Morgenthau from the Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Not even close.
I just didn't give a shit, man.
Owen Wilson, though, helps with that, I think, because Owen Wilson's pretty
and Richard
awesome.
E. Grant, two phenomenal actors.
But hey, we had really talked about Mobius, because there's a bit of an elephant in the room. He's presumably gone through that Tempad gate and right back to the TVA. So what the hell's he going to do?
Oh, I really hope it was... I'm hoping... So there's so much that's got to happen in episode 6. I hope it's a long episode.
Well, he's going to free B-15.
Yeah, and I want to see him burn the TVA to the ground.
He's got to find a way to make all of the variant Minutemen know that they're variants.
And obviously he can't enchant them to let them know.
Kind of like what is that? The Ark of Truth in Stargate Continuum.
Yeah, he shows all the Ori.
Yeah, he needs a device that reveals to all of the Minutemen that they're variants.
Well, I think what'll happen there is Mobius didn't have a lot of screen time, but again, everything Owen O. Wilson's done.
He's probably going to have a lot more screen time in the finale.
I think it'll be 2 stories for the finale.
We'll have a little bit of Mobius taking down Renslayer, and then we'll have basically just.
I really hope
Loki and Sylvie just figuring out who the Wizard of Oz is.
I hope Renslayer goes out without finding out who the Timekeepers are, and that will be her destruction, is the fact that she never found out. And then moving on to, as I say, so Richard E. Grant gets taken out awesome in his hero moment, and they finally win. They part the smoke, and there we have a combination of Barad-dûr and Hogwarts. That's what I thought when I saw it last night.
It's just a castle.
But it's a castle with a big glowing tower.
Yeah, did you notice, though, that it's kind of a yellow glowy thing? And
your Mind Stone theory.
Okay, this is something that you have to watch the end credits for, but do you know how, they do this hand waving moment in episode 2 where the Infinity Stones,
the paperweights,
are just paperweights they don't work. They're everywhere and they're all inert. Well, in the end credit scene, not the end credit scene, sorry, but in the credits, when it's showing all of the TVA, with all of the credits and stuff popping up,
the stuff that most people have just turned it off.
You get a shot of several yellow.
I think it's
Infinity
3
Stones.
scenes. You see one blurred, and then you see 2.
Yeah, you get a couple of shots of yellow Infinity Stones being used as paperweights that are actually starting to come to life, that are glowing and pulsating, and it has me wondering if there's something Mind Stone related going on here.
Okay, so I'm going to throw this out to you then. How would this satisfy you if the big bad they find at the end of it is one of the Celestials that created the Infinity Stones at the dawn of time? Remember when the Collector is explaining how they're created? They're created by Celestials. Celestials could be somebody who sets up...
What if it's the Soul Stone and it's Black Widow?
Yeah, Black Widow is the...
That's Michael's hot take of the day.
Well, you never know. We might find out on Friday. At the end of it, she gets sucked into some sort of vortex, and that's where she ended up.
Yeah. Can't wait to go watch that now.
What I did notice from the second...
Oh, we're going to have to do a live review of that after we
get the weekend, yeah. What I did notice at the end of the second viewing was when they part the screen and we see the castle that... It's definitely the castle that Sylvie had the glimpse of, which we see very briefly when she touches alive for the first time. But I noticed that there was ships flying, which I'd never noticed last night when I watched it the first time. There's a ship taking off. Because obviously castle and stuff you think old. But obviously if there's a spaceship there, then there's technology there.
Spaceships can be old too.
Spaceship. The great and the bad thing about this episode is I really want to watch next week's and find out who it is because they left me on a cliffhanger. And the really bad thing about this episode is I really want to watch next week's episode because they left it on a cliffhanger.
So, this is what I was having trouble kind of articulating earlier when I was talking about this is filler, but it's not bad filler, it's good. So, in my mind, I don't want to get into this final episode and it just be the answer to the whodunit question.
Or drinking from a fire hose. Here's all the information that you need.
Yeah, I want there to be like resolutions to the little threads that have been tugged at throughout this whole series. What themes have we got? So far, we're working away pretty much at that theme of loneliness. As a matter of fact, after that episode, that's it. We've got over this thing that Loki realizes that he doesn't need to be alone, and realizes that he can be
both of them. They
can be family.
Yeah, they Dom. Nothing stronger than family. No, but I feel both our characters learned that today.
So that plot thread's pretty much been dealt with, so you don't really need to work away at that. But what other things, what other little threads have we kind of brought up so far in this series that you really want to make sure that they get resolved? Because that's something that happened in WandaVision in the finale that kind of disappointed me about the finale of that show. Was it really was just more of a what's the hex or why is the hex? That's it. That's all you really get from the finale of that. I don't want this to end and it's like, who's the timekeepers and why are the TVA? I don't want that to be. I want to have something. I want some resolution for Loki. I want to know that he's going, like, he's our Wild West hero from Shane. He's going to jump on his horseback and he's going to ride off onto more adventures. I want something like that to happen. I don't want this to just be, the timekeepers are Kang. Ooh,
yeah. So first off, I don't want either Sylvie or Loki to die. I think that would be not lazy, but from how I've enjoyed this show, I think it'd be bad. Secondly, I'm going to ask you the question that we asked at the end of our reviews for Wanda and Falcon before we watched the finale. Do you think we get a second series of Loki, or do you think this has been built to put Loki back into the MCU film universe?
I think this is season 3 of the Disney Plus MCU. I've already told you what my thoughts on that are. I think.
So you think he's going to set up Hawkeye?
I think we'll have
Hawkeye is the time.
Possibly. I do believe that the shows are going to be it's kind of like Black Mirror, right? I've never seen Black Mirror, but like
every episode.
Oh, it is every episode. Well, imagine that, but like
over a series.
For over a series, exactly.
Well, no, because we know we're getting a WandaVision season 2.
Do we?
Yeah.
Oh.
And we're going to get a Captain Falcon and the Winter Soldier season 2.
I don't know if I like that.
This has been
especially not Captain America and the Winter Soldier. I don't want to, unless the only way that I can see that series being fixed in my eyes is if they make it longer, because the biggest problem with Falcon and the Winter Soldier isn't all the things we were being facetious about, like Anthony Mackie not having the
acting gravitas,
the aptitude to be a leading man, or any of that sort of stuff. Or to me, the biggest problem with Captain Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Captain America, is that it was just all far too rushed. They tried to get so much to happen in such a short amount of time, and it suffered for it. Whereas I feel like Loki has moments like that too. Like I say, with Mobius's development, for instance, and their friendship didn't quite feel real to me. Not in the grand scheme of things. I think we need. If they're going to continue making these shows, we need them to be a bit longer.
Yeah, 10 episodes.
Just a simple.
So my thoughts on this is, I think Captain America and the Winter Soldier and WandaVision. Okay. WandaVision itself does not lend itself to another season of that style of show. If they do another WandaVision, it'll have to be completely different.
Well, yeah. Well, maybe, because remember, WandaVision is a play on words for television, right? And stuff, but it's Wanda and Vision, so the season 2 could just be about Wanda and Vision. Yes. I mean, I don't want it. I don't want that. I would like a Vision movie, White Vision movie, where without her in it, without Scarlet Witch in it,
where he's trying to find a ship.
He's trying to find the ship of Theseus. No. He's become the ship of Theseus.
Yeah. So, but what I'm saying is that show doesn't lend itself to a second series of the same style.
Yeah.
Whereas Captain America and the Winter Soldier, you could do another episode. You could do another season like that, basically based on Bucky and Sam. Let's say Zemo escaped and he takes a couple of bad guys with him.
Except that show is essentially just a glorified origin story for new Captain America.
But what I'm saying though is it does lend itself to a second season, because you could have another second season where they're trying to find out who the Shadow. No, not
to
the Shadow
me,
Broker.
to me, bringing this full circle and back to Loki now, because we're getting a little bit off topic. To me, Loki needs to end with a big, like, oh no, what have we done moment.
Well, what I'm up
like they're thinking bringing down the TVA is the right thing, and it's true, the TVA is a bad thing, but when they bring it down, chaos will ensue, and the universe will finally. Because I told you what do I think is going to be the big bad of this new phase of Marvel movies?
Do you think?
I think the multiverse is the big bad.
Well,
no, I told you I don't think Scarlet Witch is the big bad. I just think she's villainous. She's going to be. She's the new Loki.
So
hold on.
Yeah.
Address that for a second.
So I am going to do. I'm just going to say. So I think you're right. I think the end of this show is the end of this show. And we've now got three really good characters in Mobius, Sylvie, and Loki that we can reinsert back into the MCU. And it'd be great for that Loki to meet up with Thor, potentially in as Guardians of the Galaxy or whatever they want to call it, and Thor and Loki have a...
Volume 3.
I don't know whether that's the one where Thor's going to be in it or not.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, it is. Yeah. So there's that. But what I'm with you on this. I think at the end of this, Sylvie and Loki think they've prevailed. They take down the Timekeepers, and we find out that maybe it is a Celestial, and they kill the fucker. But what?
Because to me, that's a lingering plot thread nobody's talking about.
No.
Well, okay, we brings down the TVA. Oh, and the multiverse lived happily ever after.
Well, no. What happens there is they break the multiverse, because we know Marvel have done this before, where they release films that are set in different times. So the next film out is the Eternals. They're not going to break the multiverse of madness, and the Eternals show up. So I think what will happen is Loki and Sylvie will prevail over the Timekeepers, think they've won, but then realize they fucked up and created the multiverse. They've reintroduced the multiverse, because I've had this theory, and you kind of, is that the multiverse is the natural state of the universe. Then the Timekeepers came by, or whoever it is, and decided, no, it has to be linear, it has to be one sacred. So what they've done is they've restored it back to its natural order, but not in a good way, and now it's in chaos. Or madness, or whatever.
Maybe Loki and Sylvie become King and Queen Loki and Sylvie, and become the new rulers of the sacred timeline.
No, I really think that this will destroy the sacred timeline and start the multiverse. Then we'll have the Eternals film, which will be set probably at a time before this happens. Then our next film, I believe, is Spider-Man 3, where there's talk of Andrew Garfield and the Spider-Verse.
Really? Because remember, we've had 2 trailers for Shang-Chi.
Spider-Man 3's March of next year, and
we haven't seen any trailers for that yet.
No,
but we've seen 2 trailers for Shang-Chi.
Let me have a look. But Eternals is not.
We need to make sure we have these things up.
Let me have a look. Right, no, because it just came to me. MCU release dates.
Well, get that up, and then let's maybe move on to some.
December of this year, Spider-Man.
That's nuts. We haven't had a trailer yet.
I know. Somebody pointed that out on YouTube the other day. I was like, but think about it. If Loki does break the multiverse, you're not going to show a trailer showing the Spider-Verse with Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire before the multiverse is broke, because then you're just giving away the end of your show. So you might find that next week when Loki drops, at the end credit scenes of Loki is a trailer for Spider-Man, if they break the multiverse, with Tobey Maguire and Andrew. And now, because when they were talking about having the Spider-Verse and Tobey Maguire, I didn't like it, because like you said, it's now cross-franchising studios, but if the multiverse is real, it makes sense that there are other Spider-Mans. There's a crocodile Spider-Man. He's called Spider-Gator.
Except that, again, the multiverse for me
doesn't work like that. It just
doesn't work like that. I hope that remains a gag.
Hang on.
I hope that Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, if they're in it, I hope that it's just Tobey Maguire is Peter Parker in his 40s.
No,
he is let me finish. Is Peter Parker in his 40s. Andrew Garfield is Peter Parker in his 30s, and Tom Holland is late teen, but Peter Parker. I like this whole like people looking different, and it don't work for me, because like we go to.
But we've had this in the Enter the Spider-Verse.
But Into the Spider-Verse.
But it's a great movie.
But it's not the MCU. That's not. I'm not debating whether it's a good movie or not. I'm talking about whether or not the concept of a fantastical multiverse works in the ground.
Well, yeah, because it's madness.
okay, madness doesn't mean fantastical.
Chaos.
But it's got nothing to do with you know. So what do I mean when I say fantastical?
Like not making sense.
Like it's magic.
Yeah.
Like alligator Loki, for instance, is complete pure fucking fantasy.
But this show's shown us that there are Lokis that don't look like Loki. And
exactly, which is complete pure fantasy.
Well, but this is a fantasy. Nowhere at the beginning of Loki it says
MCU is
a statement. This is
the
set in
MCU's grounding characteristic has always been that it is a more realistic take on superheroes.
Okay, so
it's always been the goal and ambition of MCU.
It's a little more realistic, but it's not like Dark Knight realistic.
No, don't get me wrong. We're in a fucking universe where you've got like wizards.
Yeah. And you've got
androids.
You've got Tony Stark not being a gooey mess after his Iron Man suit turns in the wrong direction.
So like, but that's what I say though about like how much you question things. Like your problem, for instance, with Captain America, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, for helicopters not obeying the laws of physics, right? How much where is the fine line to be drawn? The line must be drawn here in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where your believability and your imagination become ambiguous.
I think if you're right, and the end of this show does create the multiverse of madness, and then we have the Eternals set before this so that they can also be in the multiverse of madness, then you do have Spider-Man Far From Home having different looking Spider-Mans like Into the Spider-Verse. Because Into the Spider-Verse you have a pig Spider-Man, you have noir Spider-Man.
But pig Spider-Man isn't Peter Parker.
No. But it shows that other people are Spider-Man.
So that's what I was saying about the different Lokis that we had who don't look like Tom Hiddleston. Those were Lokis who aren't actually the same person. They're people who were probably adopted by
Odin.
Odin's probably
this alligator.
It's probably this weird. Yeah, exactly. It's like this
my boy.
This alligator has omnipotent powers and it's intelligent and can speak. So we're going to adopt you, and we're going to you're my son now.
The more I think,
maybe that's why alligator Loki's super chill, because like he's always had love and affection from his father.
The more we talk about it,
the more it becomes ridiculous. And what does he tell you in this episode? The more you think about it, the more ridiculous.
So that's it. I think we've hit the nail on the head. This is going to be the one theory.
No.
Take a time, Sam. This is the one theory that is actually going to be right.
I have a theory that I'm telling you right now will be right.
Okay, so I'll tell you mine. They're going to win. They'll find out who the Timekeepers was. It was maybe a Celestial. Because he made time stones as well.
No, maybe. You're making a theory.
Okay,
now.
So they will find the big bad of this show, kill him, and destroy the sacred timeline. And they'll be doing it thinking that it's setting it back to its natural course. But by doing it through violence or just abruptly and not doing it nicely, it'll be a multiverse of madness. And that's where we'll end. The multiverse will be in chaos. Then we'll have the Eternals movie in November, and it won't have anything to do with this.
So the reason
and then Spider-Man will pick up on the timeline from there.
The reason I think that it's probably very realistic that the big bad who's behind, it's not big bad of the MCU, it's just the person who's behind all this, is a Loki. It's because think about it. We're about to have two Lokis crack Eliath and find
another Loki.
Well, they're going to do it. This void is plagued with Loki survivors. So who's the only one who's likely to be able to get through all of that and defeat what's on the other side? Loki. So it's probably a Loki, and there's our infinite time loop. Except this time, not even except. Maybe they get through there and they find a Sylvie and a Loki, another Sylvie and a Loki,
and they're about to die, and they have to take over.
Yeah, and they're like, you can't keep doing it this way though. We found a better way. Oh, we fought that too. At the end of WandaVision, end credit scene, doing her astral projection, reading the book of the dark home, trying to find her children, searching, scouring, presumably the multiverse. Now we had the pulsating mind stones. We also have the pulsating yellow beacon at the top of this castle. Just a coincidence. Just a coincidence. Possibly what's happened is that at some point, when Wanda discovers her true power and becomes the Scarlet Witch, she goes through this whole fucking infinite, timeless endeavor of trying to find her children, and realizes that what it takes is to create the sacred timeline. And so she becomes
The timekeepers.
Herself, the timekeeper, and that's why she instills herself at the end of time, because she is, for all intents and purposes, the destroyer.
The only reason I would go against that is we know in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, it's basically Doctor Strange chasing Wanda through different multiverses, because she realizes, because at this moment in time she's not a Nexus being, because there's only one timeline.
Well, how cool would someone said, it's like, this is quickly becoming one of my favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe properties, and I'm like,
It is.
yeah,
me.
you know what? Yeah, it ticks all the boxes and tickles all the right.
Looks
all
great.
The right nerves for me.
Great acting, great characters,
Sounds
and
great.
great character interactions, and great soundtrack. Anyway, yeah. So that's been a nice long show. Are you looking forward to the finale?
Yeah, obviously.
No, fuck it. I don't want to watch it.
Yeah. So let's move on. And as you like to always say at the beginning of every episode, I'm going to say at the end of the episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you've enjoyed listening to us fucking banter back and forth for the last 10 minutes. And until next time, bye-bye.
Have a great night.